Good morning, everybody. So we finally get to the conclusion of the dramatic story of Joseph and his brothers in this week's Parsha. And that moment where he reveals himself to his brothers and he says, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph, is my father still alive? And the brothers are absolutely devastated. They're crushed. Of course, they're fearful because they don't know if he's looking to take revenge or not, and he's quite powerful now. But there's something even deeper going on than fear. And it's, I guess you could call it remorse, but it's even deeper than basic, simple guilt or remorse. You see, earlier on in the story, there's a moment where it says that Joseph recognized his brothers when they came to Egypt, but they did not recognize him. And I always found that troublesome. How is it possible? How did they not recognize him? It was, after all, I mean, Joseph was their brother. They spent 17 years with him before they sold him into slavery. But there's an insight that I came across, which is a beautiful explanation. It's from the Alter Rebbe, from Shner Zalman of Liadi, and he says that it's deeper than just that they didn't recognize him. It doesn't mean that they didn't recognize him now. It means all the years that he was living with them, for the first 17 years of his life, they didn't recognize him. They didn't see him. They didn't see his greatness. They only saw him on the surface. They were all caught up with their own stories, their own narrative, their own perspective. And because of that, and the fears that they had, and the difficulties that they had with themselves vis-a-vis him, they failed to see who he was. They didn't appreciate his greatness, his uniqueness, his creative genius, his ability to interpret dreams. They missed all of that. They didn't recognize him. And now, finally, at this moment, when they see who he is and who he was all along, they're filled with an overwhelming sense of regret, remorse on the deepest level, that they could have failed. They could have had this amazing, amazing brother and failed to appreciate and recognize who he was. And the reason why this struck me so much is I feel like on some level, we all do this in our lives. We all get very much I would say caught up in or committed to our own stories, our own narrative, our own perspective on things. And that then determines how we look at the people around us, or perhaps even if we look at the people around us. There are so many people living their lives parallel to ours, and we're failing to see and to appreciate and to value who they are and what they have to offer and what they bring to the table. Now, this gets extremely tragic when those people are our spouses, who we are failing for some reason to see and to recognize and to appreciate their own unique greatness. Maybe because we're frustrated with them for different reasons, or we're carrying around anger, or whatever it might be that's blocking us from seeing who is this amazing, incredible person that I'm married to, or who my children are, because we're frustrated with them. And we're focusing on what they're doing wrong and where they're not accomplishing or achieving in the way that we think they should be achieving. And because of that, we're failing to see who they are, to recognize them, to recognize their greatness. And it shouldn't take a moment like the story of Yosef. It shouldn't take a tragic moment, a traumatic moment for us to wake up one day. You know, so sad. The saddest thing in the world is when people leave our lives. And it's only then that we recognize and appreciate who this person was that was in our midst. We shouldn't let that happen to us. Maybe we're just caught up. Maybe we're just focused on ourselves. We're too distracted. Maybe it's even just distraction. But whatever it is, those people in our lives, the ones that are closest to us, that are so beautiful and so deep and so spiritual and have so much to offer and so much to teach, and we're not seeing them and we're missing them. Yosef recognized his brothers. He knew who they were. He saw their greatness, but they didn't recognize him. They didn't know who their brother was. And because of that, they made tragic, tragic decisions that affected all of Jewish history. So again, a challenge for us to think about over Shabbos is there somebody, are there people in our lives that we need to see better? We need to recognize them. We need to look a little bit more deeply and understand who they are, so that we can appreciate them while we have them and not only after they're gone. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom from Yerushalaim.